Hey friends, welcome everyone. Appreciate you being here. Really honored to have Dr. Bear Paul Lando with us today, and one of my favorite people in the world to listen to on the Alpha Vedic channel. So Dr. Bear Lando, welcome. How are you today?
Doing wonderful, Joel. Good to see you.
You, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy life and really fascinated by your story, how you became such an interesting person and learned so much and also had a lot of fun doing it. So I'd love for those that you don't know about you that are on my channel, if you could give us as brief or as long of a background as you feel comfortable with around how you became a doctor and what kind of adventures you had along the way and what you're doing currently with the knowledge that you've gained over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a bit of a different background. I'll keep it brief, but everything begins and ends with athletics.
Oh,
And,
cool.
that's when I was competing, I did pretty good. And, I was a sport athlete and then had scholarships,
Awesome.
to major colleges. And I always like to approach my training scientifically. So I wanted to learn more and more about the body. And when I was in college, even though I never cracked a book in high school because I basically majored in football and lunch, right? And so when I got in college, I got kind of turned on because I wanted to know some things and ended up doing pre-med. And that led to my first certification after pre-med at Stanford in emergency medicine. And then from there, I decided to go into other things because I wasn't quite getting all that I wanted to know. I
Mhm.
practiced in, emergency services for about 5 years.
Wow.
And then I attended a naturopathic college, majored, if you will, in Oriental medicine and classical homeopathy. When I was engaged there, I started doing postdoctoral training in applied and clinical kinesiology. So I was in those pioneering circles, that developed a lot of that. And then I went on to chiropractic college because I was in California at the time and I wanted an alternative license because I was no longer in a hospital.
Hmm.
And that required some kind of licensure, and naturopathy wasn't recognized in state of California. So chiropractic was it. Fortunately, I did a lot of all the stuff, so I got through a lot quicker. With my background and practice under a DC, we moved to Hawaii where I had my major practice for many years. So I was an alternative physician for about 40 plus years.
Hmm.
And along the way, I certified in osteopathic techniques,
Hmm.
acupuncture, a host of other things, but in particular in Germany, the old school bioterrain that was founded under Gunther Enderlein and live cell microscopy. I kind of delved in with both feet in that, and so did a lot of blood work on everybody along with my clinical work, and we had a very international practice, which drew many interesting people. And that's because I, was able to synthesize a lot of material and then develop some new approaches out of that with it proved effective. So started drawing some fascinating folks to us. And I said it ends in athletics because now I'm retired from that and just back into my full martial arts training, even though I'm not competing anymore. I used to. And, so still athletically engaged, even though I'm pushing
Hmm.
80, as they say.
Wow.
So, and then farming here, I've certified in permaculture farming and master gardener certification. And my wife and myself used to teach classes out of Oregon State University extension courses. And now we just have the farm. It's just us and we're having a good time.
Oh man. Wow, powerful, dude. You went deep and studied a lot of stuff. That's very disciplined to be able to train that intensely. And did you have from what I've heard from some like your speech at Music and Sky, you also had some influence from the sort of the non-ordinary side, the shamanic healing side of things. And do you mind sharing kind of a little bit of how that got brought into it as well?
Sure. They always say the teacher appears when you're ready.
Mm.
And even though I was academically and, all that I mentioned, I never planned any of this, just one thing led to another. And I always like to see what's around the next bend. So it's not like I was a glutton for punishment or, y- you know, it just sort of happened.
Cool.
And I was opening up my first alternative practice before I moved to Hawaii. And I was buying a sound system for my new office, and this woman walks up to me and started to talk to me, and she like knew everything about me, and I'm,
Mm.
what the heck's going on here? And she said, "There's somebody you're supposed to meet. I was sent here to get you." And at this point, I figure she's a nut bar, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to back out of the store and end the conversation. She ends up in my office a couple weeks later and says, "No, I'm really supposed to bring you somewhere." And I said, "No way." And so I find myself in a car going out in the boonies about 4 hours north of where I lived, and
Mm.
was led in this country, hike, and out in this little clearing was this literally little hut out in the meadow, and
Wow.
this old dude was out there, and he was in his 90s, and she introduced me. I called him Grandpa, Grandpa Blue Water. He was a real deal from, the old lineage of Native American medicine. He was a practitioner of owl and bear medicine. And I
Mm.
could give you a lot of, stories that kind of bent my noodle along the way.
Hmm.
But looking back, I realized that that was really what I needed because up to that point, I'd amassed a lot of information in my head, but I had to get out of my head, and he got me out of my head.
Mm.
And I was what he told me his last project before he made the journey. He was in his 90s, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
and he was sent after me to help me remember things. Apparently, and when we engaged, he kind of regressed me into certain memories that we had adventures together at different times,
Wow.
and also helped shatter the illusion that what we take for granted here in the outside world is really not the real deal. It's
Mm.
real and it's important, and it's an intense experience that's necessary for rapid soul expansion, but it's not real. And so that awareness will say that he
Yeah.
helped grow. I was able to apply in my practice and help me hold space for clients, patients, whatever you want to refer to them as, when they came in, so that I would listen to symptoms and, be able to decipher things in an intellectual sense with the languages that I had learned from all the schooling, but that was only for, to learn a vocabulary to decipher what I was, or decode what I was receiving in other ways. And then my job was to hold a space and until they had some light bulbs come on. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. And he was a remarkable man and probably the most important mentor I ever had.
Wow.
And because my reality kind of shifted, I was open and searching in those directions, but I'd never dreamt that I'd
Sure.
get some experiences that, you know, I was reading about prior to that.
Yeah. Cool. It's so cool, man. What a powerful combination that you had all the training and the knowledge and the information, but then you were able to tap to that other side of it and then be of service to patients, clients and stuff. That's pretty rare. It's hard to find. I wish there were more of you out there. It's kind of I'm always kind of interested in who has that balance.
Mhm.
Were there psychedelics involved or had you done
No,
psychedelics
he didn't
prior?
do that. He didn't do that. He was of a state, we'll say, where he could
Yeah,
go places and take you places without drugs.
amazing.
And he, we never even talked about that stuff.
Yeah,
And I even in going through college in the '60s and everything, I dabbled in some natural things, but never took LSD and everything, because I never trusted chemicals.
yep,
And so, yeah, with him, you didn't need drugs, and he did such amazing things as far as stepping in and out of worlds and literally
Mm,
bringing you to places where you're there every, not in a imaginatory state, but literally changing locations and being there and viewing things.
mm,
And, after I spent an intense year with him, and at one point I said, Grandpa, what, what am
mm,
I doing with what I'm doing in my practice? I see you doing these things. I feel like it's kind of unnecessary, all the other things I learned. And he said, no, actually, it's very necessary because people are not do not relate to my world anymore. They need people like you that know the contemporary vocabulary again, so that they can take you seriously. But then you can work through that. And I
mm,
said, okay, because I was at that point kind of feeling like all the school I did was a waste of time.
mm. Oh, yeah, wow. That's so grounded because a lot of shamans do go way out and they don't bridge the two worlds. And he clearly knew that, he needed to speak with you and that he could reach out and grab you like that he could send somebody. My teacher used to do that. He would know that there would be a woman at a concert that had a particular tattoo, and then he would have one of his apprentices be at that concert in order to invite them in to be an apprentice. And just because he could do that doesn't mean he was a top-notch guy. Like some shamans do that stuff, and it would be best to say no to those invitations, right? So it's super fortunate that you found somebody that wasn't misusing their power and that truly was willing to give you an authentic apprenticeship. Did he have other apprentices? Was it just you and him?
He had two wives.
Yeah,
Now, remember, he's an older gentleman,
sure.
and the wives weren't in a traditional wife capacity or anything physical, but they triangulated the three of them in
Wow.
order to give Grandpa even more oomph in order to do things. Now, after
Mm,
I was with him a little bit, I used to like to go through all this stuff, and I found this little box by where he used to sleep, and he had all these photographs in there,
wow.
and the photographs were him with these other notable people that I'd read about, like Sun Bear and Rolling Thunder,
Yeah.
and so it turned out, which I didn't know because he'd never tell me these things. It turns out that he was the elder for the whole American Indian movement and
Wow.
the guy behind the scenes that they would all go to receive counsel with. And another interesting thing in these photographs is his head would never show up. It would always just blob out as a big ball of light. And
Wow.
he was emanating a lot of light.
Mm,
So he also was very engaged in, I wouldn't say politics, but they had a convoy that was, who was it at that point? Reagan, who was sent to the Oval Office to present a priceless emerald that was actually programmed as a two-way receiver. So they, you know, have a little bit
wow.
more going on than most people would suspect, and they're using technologies that the U.S. government know little of, we'll say.
Wow. Totally. Yeah, the old magic and old medicine and magic that we've forgotten and our ability to work with stones and
Hmm.
yeah, that's so incredible. Man, yeah, that's funny that he was part of that movement. My elder, John Two Birds, was running guns from Cuba to the US to Cuba in order to make money for the American Indian movement. And he was just really a fearless person. He had come out of Vietnam as a paratrooper and he would undetonate bombs or whatever they call that. And he just had that. He was raised in the medicine and so he had no
Hmm.
fear being out there. And he was actually escaping his grandfather by going to Vietnam in order to have a normal life, he thought, because
Right.
he didn't want to be just only focused on this shamanic path and his grandfather had actually stolen him from his mother so that he wouldn't ever be comforted, that he would just be really powerful in that particular way. And so his life was wild and he hung out with all those guys like
Hmm.
um yeah, Black like Wallace and those guys really powerful medicine. It's really crazy to see what's happened. There's so many of
Yeah.
the dogs are gone now,
Yeah.
and then with the scam in 2020, a lot of the Lakota people were like praising Fauci and that we needed to save our elders. And so
Hmm.
it just was crazy to see a lot of people I was spiritually associated with really go into fear around that time too. So it's been a
Yeah.
real loss.
That
So,
happened in Hawaii too with the Hawaiian folks. I was involved with the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, and the real purebloods will say the Hawaiian nation, they didn't buy it, but a lot of the regular folks did. And Grandpa actually got me to Hawaii. I had to find my power spot where I needed to practice all those years, and I was in Northern California where I grew up.
wow,
And Grandpa used to journey all over the place, take me on journeys. We'll say one of them was what he described as his power spot, and we'd come up through a bottom of a pool of water,
wow,
and that pool had a waterfall, and there's like this vortex, like a triangulation of these three kind of big mountains, we'll say. And so after he passed, and I had a little practice out in West Marin County, and we were just feeling restless, like we're supposed to find our spot. And so we just thought, okay, Maui, and I went there and just ran into some folks, and they invited me, out in a remote part of the island. I woke up, they put me up there, and I woke up the next morning. They said, there's a great little hike if you go. And
mm,
so I go out there, and the first thing I sit down on the ledge, and I'm hearing voices, and, not crazy, but, you know,
yeah,
and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I looked around, just dawned on me, this is where Grandpa used to bring me all the time.
wow,
And it was the exact place. And it wasn't just, again, from an imagining, because when he journeys, you are actually there.
yep.
So when I got back to a place where there was a phone, I phoned up Deb and said, we're moving to Maui.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, and
that's so
that's where
great.
we raised our kids. And,
Mm.
and the fact that I'm a compulsive surfer,
Yeah.
it kind of fit the bill in that way
Oh,
too. So
what a cool life, man. So inspiring and just proof that guidance is real and that we
mhm.
can be guided and we don't have to use our mind in the way we think we do and worry and analyze. So you just followed your heart, you followed a path, and you were super fortunate to have such a powerful capacity to journey with him. Were you able to learn how to do that kind of journeying on your own, or is it the power that he had that made it possible?
He definitely imparted some awareness, not doing exactly what he was doing, but since my wheelhouse was more working with people,
Yeah,
I was able to do some things from the other side, we'll say,
yeah,
while we were, going, setting people up on protocols and
cool.
doing all the things. And it's hard to articulate, but there was, yeah, just different techniques that I would actually do from my dreams. And
Yeah,
he taught me how to go there and then to become lucid and then
yep.
work with people from that space. And
Mm.
we saw some interesting things happen. Yeah.
Oh man, amazing. And then has it translated into where, since you're able to do that for others through dreams, are you able to do you pursue lucid dreaming as a practice, or do you do it outside of working with patients as just for enjoyment or to discover things about yourself?
All the above. I don't, at one time I did do a lot of practices. And when I met Grandpa, I was already engaged in martial arts.
Yeah,
And I, studied with some folks from the old country that were also out there in that world and
sure.
doing phenomenal things. And also after, in Hawaii, continued studying with people from the old country, like really old guys that, we're from the up in the mountains and for that world kind of doing shamanistic type things only within the context of martial arts, but they were able to do pretty
Yeah.
spectacular things with their body. And so, that's what I still like to practice these days. As far as lucid dreaming, I don't think about it. It just happens when it's supposed to happen.
Cool.
And when I wake up with something, then I know the difference, of something I'm supposed to act on, what's real and whatnot. And I also learned how to program myself before going to sleep if I really wanted to know something or delve into something. And then it's pretty much automatic that that would, come during the night. And also being very meticulous about putting in the order that I have to remember this when I awaken.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah, divination and different things, learning to be psychic or be in tune with what's coming,
Hmm.
be listening, and have you ever been in a situation as an elder to, are you apprenticing anyone? Are you teaching these things to anyone particular?
No.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
It's kind of interesting because I get hit up quite a bit of people that are saying, well, you have to teach
Yeah.
because a lot of the things you do, and we're not talking about anything shamanist. By the way, all the shamanistic stuff, just for your audience, it's not any kind of spectacular thing that only gifted people could do because I'm living proof that anybody can have experiences because basically at heart I'm still a jock
Yeah.
and you know and grandpa his saying was if it doesn't grow corn we aren't interested, so
Yeah.
he's very grounded with it,
No,
but
that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I'm glad you choose your private life and aren't trying to
Mhm.
like it's complicated to try to be uh, you know, available in the way that people want, and it takes really healthy boundaries to kind of just be at peace with our own, because I think the greatest gift we can give humanity is to heal ourselves, because the
Mhm.
100 monkey thing, it like, and I see a lot of people are out there, they're like wounded healers, they're trying to help everybody, but they're
Yeah.
really not doing the work. It's just
Mhm.
their way of avoiding it. So it's
Yeah.
really grounded what you're saying. Oh man, that's so cool. Yeah, so have you found that during this time with people waking up since this big scare in 2020,
Mhm.
that are you feeling a positive shift because of it? Like it seemed to change a lot of people's lives and put people into new relationships and adjusted people's perspectives. Have you been kind of enjoying watching all this unfold as people start to ask more questions?
It's absolutely a wake up call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm involved with, let's just say, other practices, and within those circles, this kind of knowledge it goes back way back. And one of the things you hear all the time is for those who will be left.
Hmm.
So this is the time. So I've been told, and with my own experience, it seems like I can corroborate it. It's this. It's game time,
Yeah.
and we're all needing to make a decision.
Hmm.
And you ask, do I have any apprentices? Well, I don't, and never have fancied myself as a teacher,
Yeah.
but I really believe that that old model maybe has come to an end
Yeah.
because it's time for all of us to be shamans, so to speak.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been saying that too. It's like the guru days are over. It's kind of all in. We go inward and stop outsourcing and asking others. We learn
Hmm.
to get to know what the earth or the sun. You don't even need like a higher being or some sort of ascended master either.
Yeah.
I think we can work directly with source, and I agree. I think everyone's saying there's all these NPCs and stuff. I would say everyone, if you scratch the surface deep enough, everyone has the capacity to become awakened to their consciousness and to realize why they're here and to come out of that hypnosis. and it's very delicate. Hypnosis is a very delicate thing, and most people are terrified of coming out of it. So they find people like you, when you talk the way you do, it could be very threatening to them just to open their idea that the kind of experiences you have, they would need to consider that you're unstable mentally if you really believed that these things happened.
Hmm.
But more and more people are going to not be able to maintain that sort of projection. I feel like the projections are going to fall off. People are going to get really lost. My elder would say there's going to be berserkers, people
Hmm.
that just really can't handle what's happening, and they're going to be trying to fix it in all the ways that are going to stop working. And so we're going to be in some thick transitions as well as some possibilities for liberation. The Toltecs say that they really learned the most when they were put in the most difficult situation, when the conquistadors
Hmm.
searching for them. That's how they discovered what they now, what later became the premise of their medicine, was to be able to walk in and out of other worlds, and to use dreams as a means to pull your physical body into other layers if need be. And so I think the Mayans really did walk out of here collectively. And I think more and more we're going to be able to do with human mass, if we can get enough people that are on the same page. I think incredible things are possible. And so it's really cool that you allow people to hear you through your channel and that you're working with other groups. And I really think it's going to be really valuable for the world, the people within the truth community, to not get lost in the rabbit holes, to not get spun out on the fear part, and to really tap into their relationship with power, joy, connection, feeling alive, having sounds like you have a healthy relationship with your partner, and you've been able to work through some things so that you're not caught in a codependent sort of typical relationship. And that's really inspiring as well. You guys have been together a long time.
Only about 50 years.
That's amazing. Good job.
I don't want to get real personal, but we've been on the same path from day one,
Wow.
and we have similar memories. And when we
Hmm.
were first together, acting on one memory, we remembered the time where we committed to not let each other forget,
Wow.
that we would help each other remember. And I think that's what this go around is about. It's about remembering.
Hmm.
There's another element to what we've been talking about that's a physical side. It's not just that people have a hard time emotionally accommodating that kind of change, which is all true, but when we start purposely transmuting a lot of the overlays,
Hmm.
then that give us a lot of our um, false appearances seeming real,
Yeah.
then literally more light comes through because there's less of that distortion that has to go through all those prisms. And that light, your neurology has to be accommodated to handle it. So, I don't really subscribe to, a lot of the stuff that's going on in the physical cultures where, the all the things that people are taking and doing, and this is going to, make me live this much longer and improve that. And there's kind of some truth to it, but the real truth is that it's all already in there. And those
Hmm.
internal practices that we're alluding to are going to bring in the real nutrition.
Yeah.
So, looking at physical culture, as far as healthy lifestyle, exercise, diet, and all that, it's important, but only from the standpoint of getting your body in a situation where it can accommodate more light.
Mhm.
If we're inundated with all the stuff that we're exposed to these days in bad food and the frequencies and everything, and all of a sudden if we were just somehow exposed to that influx of light all at once, we'd fry.
Yeah.
So it's and I think that's where sports in my background, just because one time, even though it was more body conscious oriented, it did kind of build up the physical vehicle in ways, especially when I got into martial arts and more internal practices, that help you start being able to handle getting rid of crud. I'll say that.
Totally amazing, man. Yeah, Don Juan would tell Carlos that you're gonna have to take care of your body because these jolts are gonna be intense,
Yeah.
right? It's electrical. And so our conduit would need to be functional as a means. And I see a lot of people avoiding that,
Hmm.
the physical, and they're just trying to all in on just the one side of it.
Hmm.
And it just isn't sustainable either way. And I see other people that are just so focused on their physical. It's all discipline, 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 but they're avoiding the emotional wounds that are making them so disciplined. People are avoiding their pain by,
Yeah.
and so it's really crazy to watch, and each person is on their own personal journey. But I
Mhm.
really appreciate the root cause concepts that people are helping people to heal by helping them to feel their feelings that they haven't been able to feel. And it does take a lot of courage to stay in silence until all the feelings that you've been avoiding become accessible. So we distract ourselves and distract ourselves to not be with that. And it's kind of like throwing up. You don't want to, but once you do, you feel so much better. And so, however, we can get to our pain,
Yeah.
our longing, our sadness, the grief. I still have grief from losing my mom and my girlfriend.
Hmm.
Suddenly, these things are still inside of me, and it's going to take me to get stronger and stronger in order to feel them to the depths that I'm going to need to eventually. And so I'm not claiming to have healed myself on any level. I think it's a lifelong process. And I think the GNM stuff's helping people. I don't know that that's the complete picture the way they explain it, but I'm starting to see the awareness of the emotional piece. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the GNM is, I mean, it's right on. Dr. Hammer, really called it.
yeah,
The only thing I found in practicing, and I saw thousands of folks over many years,
yeah.
um, is you can be really adept at pinpointing that insult that triggered the whole biological response, as they say in New German medicine. However, if the bioterrain is
Mm,
lacking in some element,
mm,
then that awareness um, that would shift into the, completing the healing phase. So you're not on a hanging conflict that could even be dangerous on the physical level. Um, it's hard for
yeah.
the body to do that if it doesn't have the right balance of colonizations of microbes and other elements in order for the body to run the machinery and go through the complete healing. Also, what German New Medicine doesn't do, and this is not a criticism of it,
Mhm.
but it doesn't explain the resonance factor that gets, that conveys that insult on the psyche into neurology.
Mm,
And if you understand what goes on in between, now you don't just have to, you aren't just limited to counseling a person, say, oh, this is because you're biologically expressing this trauma. It's like now you can really go in and surgically intervene on those other subtle levels, not so subtle levels, really, once you work at those levels a lot.
wow, incredible. Yeah, what a combination to be aware of all these pieces and be able to speak to them and the awareness that brings to to someone like yourself and then to the patient when they realize the simplicity of it. And
Mhm.
um man, so were you ever in a situation where you know as a doctor to patients, do you find that their emotional process or their unwillingness to change the way they eat, is it associated with coping typically? That people they go through a lot of fear around not being able to like self-soothe, and so people have a hard time with food as a like, almost like a relationship with nutrients becomes an emotional challenge.
Oh, absolutely. But, in effective treatment, you don't have set protocols. At least I didn't.
Okay.
I did, but I didn't. So the way I worked primarily through the neurology, understanding that it's no different than sitting down to the computer keyboard here. Uh, no different than understanding how to work the keyboard and go through data retrieval and finding the priority in present time that was the biggest impediment to what you're talking about. You not only are able to ascertain that, but physically on a neurological level expose it
Mm,
so it's vulnerable for treatment.
mm,
And as a, there's a lot of good doctors out there that know a lot of things, and they might say, "Oh, well, I see with this, it's this, that." And well, that those things might be true, but if you have a way to go in on that more in-depth level, you'll find that maybe you don't even need to treat those things. And
mhm.
if you can sequentially work through the neurology at the directive of the neurology itself,
Wow.
then you fix one thing, literally push it delete. And when you push it delete, it could be with any number of modalities. Take your pick. That's why I kind of
Yeah.
went through a lot of training, because you have to be able to, you know, be good at intervening on any level of the person's energy,
Mm,
biological body. And then all of a sudden, these other things that are apparent on day one, as far as things that need to be addressed, they just all get fixed all at once. It's like just knowing exactly where to pull on that tangled ball of yarn rather
wow.
than just starting to tug away because you realize you got a tangled mess.
Oh, thank you for explaining that so well and so powerfully. And yeah, it's crazy how the world functions, how people perceive medicine. And I've gone into these rooms to have conversations with people that, are defending chemotherapy is the only thing that
Mhm.
is available for treating cancer, or, they're very pro-vaccine and think anyone that didn't take a vaccine is a danger to society. And I try to have conversations and just get to know what's going on there and how, and it's very condescending the way people speak. They're very threatened by these ideas that could totally change everything. And so appreciate you being able to explain it in that way, because on this side of it where people understand the natural part, they might be judgmental of someone that can't stop eating certain things. But you're saying regardless of what's going on, someone that's truly listening, there are so many protocols to pull from, or even move beyond protocols and just truly listen to what that person can do in order to get their body to a place where they can handle the emotional process that's keeping them from being able to heal. So there's a lot of like guilt that people feel in the natural health world because they weren't disciplined enough, right? And they see someone else that was. And so I'm too trying to help people to be where they're at and not be so hard on themselves and try to get to what's actually, going on, and not try to force one to change. And it takes, so I'll be listening to this again just as a means to understand the simplicity of it. And yeah, it's a powerful way of doing it, man. Appreciate you explaining it.
Sure. And you're over the hump when you're doing things not out of discipline, but out of joy.
Yeah, beautiful.
And, I don't do anything out of discipline. If I go do my practices
Right.
or eat a certain way, it's my preference. It
Oh,
feels good.
yeah.
And one thing I learned early on is not to believe that I knew better than they did,
Wow.
my clients, because
Sure.
um, most people when they came in to see me had been referred and were usually, I was the last resort. So a lot of folks were kind of open to say, okay, I'll do it,
Yeah.
whatever. But, some people, weren't there and they'd find their way in. And, it was about treating them where they're at.
Yeah.
And I don't know if chemo's wrong for somebody.
Right.
Maybe that's exactly the
Right.
experience they need. And I
Totally.
actually saw that happen.
Sure.
Um, Now, if just a quick note on chemo, I worked with other folks. I didn't do that, but we worked with oncologists that in different countries. And so we'd work in tandem quite a bit, because I had a lot of European people. So we'd do things. We had places where they could stay long term with us, but then they'd go back home and they'd work with folks that we were working with, and especially in Germany at the time. None of those clinics really exist anymore. And on day one, what they did, they take a biopsy and then they test it against known chemo agents to see what chemo agent actually worked. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you go into a regular medic, and especially, well, anywhere in the world these days, they just start throwing the kitchen sink at you. That didn't work. Well, let's try this. And if you're still standing, great. But if the rationale was, if we're going to poison you, then we want to make sure that it's actually killing the cells that it's supposed to kill.
Yeah.
However, once we test that uh, against your own tissues, what we're going to do is put that aside, and we're going to start building you up and probably never even need it. In fact, the majority of the time, never need it. Now,
Mm.
if the person was way gone and we needed to do some radical things, then we do that particular agent low dose.
Mm-hmm.
We'd pulse it in at night because that's when it works.
Mm.
Hospitals don't do that. They have you, go in and sit there in the middle of the day when it isn't as effective.
Mm. Mm.
So low dose, pulsed at night where it's most effective. And then as soon as there any kind of, dampening down something that was, and cancer is the disease.
Right.
It's cells proliferating for different reasons than what people are aware of. But sometimes you get in this vicious circle and it's dangerous.
Sure.
Okay, so now you're doing it in this very judicious way, and
Mm.
you've already prepared the body to be stronger to withstand it. And then as soon as you get the effects, you get off, you go through massive detoxification and
Wow.
keep on with the natural protocols. And that was very rare that we would resort to that, but when we did, it was much different than anything you'd experience
Mm.
with any common oncologist.
Wow. Oh man. I wish this was just a subject. I wish people could talk about this on a larger audience because it's just so profound that you don't need to, yeah, there's a way to do it, and sometimes chemo can be the thing that, is needed, and that's amazing the way you explained it, because some people survive even when they're just nobody's paying attention, they're just doing standard non-custom protocols. So we are kind of indestructible. I've seen people on drugs for 30 years, that are still just standing strong, and they've been really hard on their bodies. So we're such powerful creatures that our ability to heal, and I think our body knows how to heal itself. It's just that we get in the way so much, and then someone like you is essentially listening and helping that person to discover what they already know subconsciously, and then offering, a
And
practical but magical solutions. That's amazing.
And those people aren't cancer survivors, they're chemo survivors.
Wow, totally.
And people that can withstand that, those folks that you're describing,
Yeah.
if they got in with some real treatment, if they have the constitution to go through all that and still
Yeah.
stand, they would have gotten
Yeah.
through just fine without it.
It's amazing. Oh, I appreciate you. A lot of people are just chemo's bad. It's purposely here to kill us. There's a lot of extremes, and you're bringing the sobriety to the whole thing, so that people don't get too lost in thinking they know something, because if we're thinking we know something, then we're not listening, we're not learning. It's really powerful the way you're
Yeah.
explaining.
And, on another level, I really believe that it's here to kill us.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, totally. Yeah.
And our job is to help people navigate through this crazy world that we've all created.
Oh man. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it is. like I've heard you say, they're coming for us. We can't pretend that's not happening. You know, these are psychopaths.
Hmm.
And I was listening to the difference between psychopaths and sociopaths with Chase Hughes, and really fascinating. It's
Hmm.
like basically he's talking about controlled folly and stalking,
Hmm.
like studying human behavior and getting to know when you're in the presence of somebody that truly doesn't have empathy, right? And he mentioned that if he was under the knife with a doctor, he wants a psychopath doctor who really wants to have the best numbers and have success, right? Because that man is so narcissistic that he'll probably successfully keep you alive just so that his track record looks impeccable. And it's an interesting thing that he was saying about that. But yeah, we're in a world in which I think often doctors are put through an ego training that, we can have some real it's just fascinating how far along people go to where they have to detach to be a doctor, for one, and then how good can you how detached you can be can lead into realms of where you're somebody that doesn't have the capacity to feel. So it's interesting to just study humans, get to know where they're coming from and why the world is the way it is. Because you have enough sociopaths and psychopaths, and they find their way to the top of financial institutions or, industries. Academics really is how it mostly works, it seems. But yeah, that's incredible that you're able to look truly at what we're dealing with and not pretend or sugarcoat it.
Yeah, and I had many patients over the years. You remember these folks that you're talking about, they don't go to regular doctors.
Right.
No way.
Right.
So I saw a good number of them and some very recognizable names
Wow.
that, and some of them that most people believe are quite sinister,
Yeah.
which they were. But the interesting thing
Mm.
is if they respect you, even though maybe you aren't from their family lines, they will be very cordial and welcoming with you, maybe
Wow.
even offer you some um,
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah. Wow.
And I had one gentleman, I remember that was just wondering, well, why, you know, you care about these folks.
Mm.
And understanding that we're different and that I had, different leanings, but, still mutual respect. And
Yeah.
some of these folks I got to know very well and,
Wow.
had dinners with them and social engagements. And there's
Yeah.
just an understanding. They accepted me. They left me alone if I was helping them. As
Hmm.
long as I didn't get out and start trying to steal people off their reservation.
Wow.
The folks that had the most problems are people that started, just making a lot of noise.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid to speak freely about what I did, but there was no point to it. And also, it distracted from what I was trying to do, which was just, help folks no matter who they were.
Wow.
So, yeah, interesting. So I got to know some of those folks, and to this day, and they think nothing of culling the herds. They
Right.
really
Yeah.
believe it's their prerogative, and there's nothing immoral about it.
Totally. Yeah. That's I was just listening to William Naylor, who is opened a Awaken Ranch in Austin, and it's le you can legally go there and take mushrooms and have, experiences. They're doing really powerful things there, and he says he has people similar that are coming there to have these experiences,
Hmm.
and the way he looks at it is that we're all one, and so those people exist, and so do we, and so we are coexisting, and we get to what he's discovered through his psychedelic journeys is the reality you live inside of is the one that you pay attention to, right? You end up creating the reality how so we could get really angry at these people who are wanting to cull or control or oversee things in this way, but if we get angry, we're handing our power over it's disempowering, and we come out of that oneness consciousness, which is very empowering. And I always say aloneness is all oneness. If you can be alone, you can connect directly to source, and you don't need others as a means to be validated, and because the mother and the son see you and you get supported. But yeah, I'm really thankful that you're able to speak to that, and that you're not, yeah, in a battle with people, right? That's what Carlos would say. The
Yeah.
battle's in the chest, it's in the heart. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do with anyone outside of us.
Yeah. And the sociopaths aren't the problem.
Right.
They really aren't. They're just doing what they do. They're having
Yeah.
their own experience. If you want, the people in the past that I really kind of get annoyed with, and to this day still have to kind of work on it,
Sure.
is it's the zombie apocalypse folks.
Right.
They're going along with it. They're the ones that are screaming at you in the grocery store to put your mask on and pay your fair share and all the stuff. If there weren't people going along with it,
Yeah.
the sociopaths would cease to exist or be able to do what they're doing because they have no power because they have for so long
Hmm.
gone down a certain path that they've lost mostly their tether with
Wow.
spirit,
Wow.
and they need our life force
Mm.
to sustain themselves in what they're doing. So
Mm.
the moment we stop giving them our life, which is every time, I turn on Alex Jones and look at the headlines and get
Sure.
pissed off at somebody doing something, it's like I'm feeding my life to that and I'm supporting it.
Right. Totally. Wow, man. So true.
Doesn't mean that you have to like it or like what they're doing,
Right.
but don't give them your life.
Oh, powerful, dude. Totally. It's gonna be, yeah, if we can just reclaim our attention, and our attention is such a powerful thing. Like what you did as a healer, you were in your dreaming, you had dreaming attention. You were able to go into your dream, use that magical side of ourself, which, it's going to be required to reclaim that in order to be. I mean, I think it's all revealed at death, what we are. We've been cut off from that understanding, but we can carefully, like you said, become aware of the totality of what we are. And that attention, that dreaming side of things is really magical. I can just close my eyes now or cover them, and all these colors show up and they start rotating, and I can hang out and travel, totally wide awake, and I'm going into these other layers, and it's so healing. It's so blissful and liberating. So going back to what you said, discipline versus impeccability. Impeccability is what you're listening and you're doing the things you love. Discipline is actually denying yourself what you want and then convincing yourself that you've done something good. And it's people get really lost there. So you really found a balance.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and you're either, well, discipline again. I, really lived by that word for a
Yeah,
long part of my life, just with athletics and everything.
it's cool.
But a focused lifestyle, maybe it does take some discipline to do practices and things so that you can keep your eye on the ball. I really believe there's some efficacy to getting some left brain information in there that gets you more in alignment with the way things work. That's why, I like to talk about waveform mechanics and things, and you don't want to go off just on an academic tangent. On the other hand, when
Yeah.
you realize when folks like Walter Russell and folks that have gone before us, not just him but a lot,
Hmm.
and really explain away so that the Western left brain, if you want to look at it that way, can understand that the only thing that brings something into manifestation or changes what's already in manifestation is what you conceive with your mind first, which creates an electrical event. The polarization that creates a resonance follows. That resonance, sorry, goes through the etheric structures, the etheric ladder, and eventually precipitates. So
Mm.
it's nice to kind of get some of those concepts, even though that won't bring you home all the way until you actually experience that in a shamanistic sense.
Right.
It goes a long way to help reconcile the two halves of yourself
Mm.
so that you're not in conflict. So every time your heart is telling you something, the brain isn't always arguing or trying to create an impediment. The brain can actually get to a point, if it's well informed, say, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So I think there's, good balance that can be achieved if you're studying the right things.
Yeah, totally. And not to get too lost too, like to ground it in things that can you can put words to, right? So one of Don Juan's requests or almost requirements of his apprentices was to go back to the university and study things that they struggle to things that they're not interested in as a means to see if they can keep their focus
Hmm.
and just come out of that, almost reach a state of indifference, a neutrality where you're not at odds with the thing that you're learning. And so there's a lot of healing that can happen with the discipline part where you do, apply your capacity to focus and but you can still have the most psychedelic experience in that classroom
Hmm.
and raising your hand and asking questions and feeling all the world doesn't have to be physical. That's what's so cool about this place is you can be almost like on mushrooms all the time without having to take the mushrooms.
Hmm.
And I don't think people realize that. They give the credit to the mushroom, but the mushroom, all it did was guide you and show you and unveil things that are accessible, through internal power training. So this seems to be the key, the internal power piece with everyone I meet that has the capacity to speak the way you do. They've developed an energetic muscle, right? There's
Yeah.
some sort of development that is not not everybody understands is even possible, and then on top of that, most people don't pursue it to the degree that
Mhm.
you have. So it's great that you're still training. But yeah, that's the piece that I'm most fascinated in is finding martial art programs. And it's been really hard. A lot of them got jabbed and put on masks, and the power went out the window. These
Mhm.
dojos used to be filled with energy and it just dropped and like oh sensei's gone, like his spirit of the teacher left the building because the energy is just so it's been really disturbing and helpful for me to had to figure out how to train on my own,
Mhm.
how to create that relationship with myself so that I'm not relying on a sensei to push me or to show me things. So it's
Yeah,
awesome.
and once, when I was starting out in martial arts, I started with more your hard styles,
Yeah.
and I gave up football, decided not to go on past college, and it kind of took the place, of sparring and doing all that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So it gave you that little fix for contact sports with it I was used to.
Sure.
And then some refinement came in as I diversified and studied in different schools. And then I went to see this one gentleman who just moved from Indonesia. He's a monk. And I was going there thinking I was going to learn some devastating fighting skills, that would
Sure.
really up my game in a ring.
Yeah.
And he just sat me down and said, "Put your attention here." And
Wow.
and then he left the room. And
Wow.
long story short, I went to him for a good number of months. I was
Cool.
in chiropractic college at the time, and so I was in East Bay where I went to school, and then on the way home, I'd stop at his little apartment in the city, and he would come back and he'd go, no, 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 and he'd put his thumb right in there and then give me a jolt. He goes, "You
Yeah.
feel that?" And I go, "Yeah." And so he will help me wake up so I could
Cool.
focus on every single point. It was just a simple microcosmic orbit, but it
Yep.
really changed my life. And then
Mm.
from that point on, I started going more in the internal arts, in different disciplines.
Cool.
Xing Yi, is kind of one of my things, and Bagua. So from that point on, it became a matter of doing that inner meditation first, and that would produce the movement, not the other way around. And,
Oh.
and I owe it to that gentleman, and again, I think I've been really fortunate in that I've run into some of these folks. That guy ended up being very well known. His name was Mantak Chia,
Oh, wow.
and it was before he was known and had his
Oh,
books out and everything. So
man.
yeah.
Oh, so lucky, dude. I'm glad you've lived such a cool life and appreciate you spending some time with us, sharing. Yeah, p for all those that are new to Barre Lando, he can be found at Alpha Vedic with Mike Winter, and they have an amazing YouTube channel and Rumble channel and stuff you guys can tap into. Appreciate your time today, Bear. I would love to do this again and keep the conversation going. I feel like we could get into all kinds of things, so hope
Oh
to.
yeah, I feel like we're just getting warmed up here. So
Perfect.
anytime I'm
Thank you.
available, and always a pleasure to speak with you. And thank you for coming on our podcast as well.
Oh man, yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome. I really enjoyed it. And all right, everyone, much love. Appreciate it, Bear, and we'll talk to you all soon. And take care out there.